MacBook Pro. And then if the owls. Here.
All right. We are going to proceed with, we're gonna move past the reports briefly and take the new business out of order. I'm going to have,
So this is the mic right here.
Yes.
Over here. Okay.
we are going to have Nate Euler come up and talk briefly about the consideration to approve the paving costs to East Stroudsburg Borough for our portion of East Broad Street, and then he has some comments on the Westfield Commons project, and then we'll get into that. So Nate, thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you. Then item 9C would be consider paving costs in East Stroudsburg Borough for Smithfield portion of East Broad Street. The last, I believe it's 400 and some feet of East Broad Street. As you get to 447 is split between the borough of East Stroudsburg and Smithfield Township. East Stroudsburg Borough has a bid out currently to do almost $1 million of paving, and they would like to finish up East Broad, hopefully all the way.
Right.
We've kind of put in an alternate to finish up that last 480 feet. If Smithfield would like to participate, we should have our bids and know the exact amount by the end of the month, I think it is. We're doing a big project, so we anticipate getting good prices on that. As long as things stabilize here with the paving. So
Perfect.
it was just, we gave some estimates.
Yeah, you said approximately 13,000.
That sounds right. And just would like to know, we'll get you the real numbers when the bids are open, but we, Kelly had Lewis, who's the borough manager, reached out just to see if you would be interested in participating in that. So we have a complete street project.
Excellent.
Mr. Euler, I'm just writing my notes here. Did you say it was 400 feet or 480 feet?
I don't.
480.
I think it's 480 feet.
Yep.
Okay,
Right.
these are my notes. If they're not going anywhere. Okay, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion on this item. Do I hear a motion to approve our participation?
I'll make a motion. I have a question.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. I'll entertain the comment after a second.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Albert. Discussion.
John, I don't know if you were involved in this, but there's a storm drain in our area of that road that goes under the road and dumps into sort of a trench that goes down and floods people's backyards there that again are in the township. As long as we're paving this, maybe we just sort of look at this to see if there's any other alternative that would be better. I don't think we want to dig up the road, but maybe we can do something. And it really is all the stormwater that comes down from Independence Road and it collects on the, I guess the south side of the road and then goes underneath.
We can take a look at it. I've not had any involvement with that problem before.
If that's over there, that could be the storm sewer that the sewer authority operates.
That's also true.
But
So anyway, I just know that's a known problem in that area. It'd be nice to look at it, but I think we should definitely go ahead with the paving.
I got a question. So the $13,000 estimate for our 480 feet, is that based on the total cost divided by total feet times 480 effectively?
We'll confirm. It's based on a tonnage, based on milling it down about an inch and then putting an overlay on it. It's pavement out was pretty good. It's just the surface that we got. So we'll do an exact number based on bid numbers and based on the actual quantity. We can separate that out.
What I'm trying to get at is simply like I want to just make sure it's not the total cost of the project and it happens that down the road in East Stroudsburg area, there's this bridge that has to do something really special and it's very expensive and we're paying for a portion of that.
No, I mean, certainly if you want to make that part of your motion, that it's be based on the actual bid cost for the fair share portion of the project, that would be appropriate.
That sounds like a good condition.
good, the owl. All right. I'll entertain. Robert, will you amend your motion to that effect?
Yes, I would.
Okay, Michael, I imagine you will.
I'll second
All
that
right.
amendment.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Now you can put on your other hat, Nate.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. On the Westfield Commons project, so Paul, we've been working on this for a while. with PennDOT coordination, 447 Franklin Hill Road. Interestingly enough, there's another spot where the borough and the township split their
Right.
municipal boundary right down the middle of Franklin Hill Road. There has been an application submitted now for the realignment of Franklin Hill. We've talked about that. That's part of this project. There's some grant money that's been obtained with the help of the township. And so that really was the critical piece to get that in and into PennDOT, and that's underway now. We're working on the rest of the project. Originally, these buildings were apartments on the top with commercial space on the first level as required by your ordinance in ED zoning district. Dr. Khan would like to have you consider some options for housing and some beneficial ways. And let Tom Campbell's here and Dr. Khan, and they can discuss. It would help, I think, help the project. We have had some impacts to parking as some of these requirements from PennDOT trying to meet all those requirements. So we're trying to reduce parking a little bit if we can. That'll help us with stormwater and also making this alignment.
I think we're all about that.
with PennDOT. So, Dr. Khan, you want to talk about what your proposal request is?
So, I mean, looking at all the options, we looked at the commercial, it's not going to work in that area because there's not a lot of commercial stuff which can go there. Having said that, we've been talking about throwing different ideas, whether some of the apartments could be low income versus the handicaps, such as the people with the disabilities.
Mhm.
So it could be all apartments, but we can have some units assigned to the handicap or the disability folks. So under the circumstances, we spoke to Tom, and Tom had some ideas in terms of how that could be incorporated. So it could be overlaid as the
Right,
housing as compared to commercial.
sure.
What's the size of on the parcel?
10 acres, a little bit.
Yeah, just under.
Okay.
And how many units are proposed with that change?
So, you know, we have to have a certain amount of units anyway for the disability folks.
Right,
So, you know, anywhere we've been throwing the numbers, Tom had said about 15%,
Mhm.
10%. That is the number we're looking at.
So right now, there were 83 in this building, 42 in this building, but there was commercial development in the buildings.
right.
So we're going to build, long-term hotel stay in the 2 floors of commercial. But instead of that, we are asking her to do the apartments.
Mm,
To accommodation of disability.
right. Tom, do you want Tom to talk about that a little bit?
I'm speaking in a non-professional, from a non-professional standpoint.
Sure.
I'm not speaking in a professional position, but effectively, the region has definitely had a shortage of the housing for disabled. My role at Coconut Mountains right away is as the Director of Housing Initiative. And that effectively means that not only am I working to try to get more housing developed, but I'm also working with our team that receives the phone calls for people who are asking for housing issues, as well as all those sorts of things. There's healthcare solutions, that sort of thing. The majority of our calls are about housing. And a significant portion of them have to do with disabled housing. So one of my focus is trying to get more disabled housing in the area. And there are a number of different ways that can be done with all sorts of external financing and funding and that sort of thing. All takes a long time and it's difficult to qualify for. As I took a look at this and talked with some of the supervisors about the need here to find some solutions other than commercial, we want to make sure that whatever solution comes up is still serving the community in some way, shape, or form. And that shortage of disability housing for disabled persons is a need. Perhaps that is one of the ways that you can still meet a community need while making a provision that allows this to go forward in a way that works well for the developer. What I'm proposing is that typically there's a requirement of roughly 4 per 100 units within any new development need to be ADA compatible. It's not a requirement that you have to rent to people who are actually disabled. The rooms just have to, the apartments simply have to be ADA compatible. What I'm proposing is the township may want to do something a little bit more prescriptive in that they may want to require that the developer certify that the persons who are renting the units actually do meet disabled requirements, i.e. typically the social security, SSI, SSDI requirements, using those as your requirement. So making sure that those units are actually rented by by those who qualify with some sort of penalty on the back end if they don't meet that. I'm also recommending that that be set a little bit higher than that 4 per 100. I'm recommending 15%. I think that's a really easy number to hit. I know how many people are in line looking for the disabled housing from the area agency on aging, as well as the calls we get. I don't think it'll be a difficult task to find people who meet those qualifications.
Sure.
How that will be fun, what the financing and the cost impacts on the developer are, that's for the developer to determine. I would not necessarily say you need to set the rates at a certain amount. If you meet those limits, those requirements that you want to set as to how many disabled people are able to stay in this unit, I believe that for the most part, they may be able to meet with market rates. But those that aren't, if you say that there is a certain percentage that has to be met, then it's up to the developer to figure out, am I going to lower my rates to meet that amount or whatever it might be? If the developer is still obligated to meet them, but they also have the freedom to find the most effective way to do so. There's a number of different ways that can be worded within the actual ordinance, but that is the general proposal.
But speaking of the ordinance itself, which is the incentivized mixed use ordinance, I think it's 308 in our chapter 27. When we conceived of all this, I don't think we really understood what the commercial patterns were on, especially Independence Road. And Independence Road has continued to develop as kind of a medical corridor. But more than that, the traffic count on Independence Road is much lower than it is on Milford Road or on 209. And it's questionable what kind of commercial businesses would want to locate there. So the idea of let's say, making some kind of an exception, I'm not sure what we do, to allow more housing and this kind of housing in return for some relief on the first floor having to be commercial, might be a good thing to consider in that area, just on Independence Road.
I don't know how many other parcels are really affected by that, because I don't know how many are large enough necessarily to do this, but I mean, be an interesting thing to consider. I'd love to see more parking reduced too. I mean, because like to do that generally anyway.
It's not the overlay, right? This is the
This is in the
Incentivized?
economic development zone. It's within that option.
incentivized. And is there a minimum size for that? I can't remember. But right now, the ordinance does say there'd have to be some sort of commercial
Right,
So
the first
floor,
first floor.
the
Right.
it will
equivalent,
have to be on the first floor, but equal in area to
yeah, equivalent of the first floor
first
square
floor.
Right.
footage
of the
has
building.
to be commercial.
That's what it
We-
says, right? That's what it
Right.
says.
We previously tried, and it is in the ordinance, to have some version of the incentivized option where if something wasn't going to get street frontage, you could concentrate your commercial in one and your apartments in another, for example. But even that topographically with this site is just not really feasible, even from an engineering perspective.
And Michael, you brought up once, and I think you're right, the fact that we're looking for commercial in the ED zone. We're not looking for more just straight housing, and I think you're right. I think if we're gonna deviate anywhere from this, it's probably on the Independence Road. As I say, it's not desirable for a lot of reasons as a commercial corridor, just
Right.
because of the traffic on it, the
Is,
lack of
For being
traffic.
across from
is,
school.
help me out with our own ordinances in R2, are apartment complexes allowed, or is it more like
They're permitted.
they are permitted?
The density is
Okay.
less than what this offers.
Right,
NRC, both of them permit, I think, apartment.
apartment complex,
yeah.
but not this many
No, not this.
people. I have to get it up. I don't know where the closest,
I don't think there's
RC.
any R2 around that.
no. But all behind it is all R1, correct?
Yeah, it's in East Stroudsburg.
In East-
Yeah, I know. I
Stroudsburg.
drive down, I drop my daughter off at East Stroudsburg
Right.
High School every day there.
This is 447 right here.
Yeah. Which color is RC or sorry, which color is R2?
R2 is this orange
Orange.
color here.
Orange.
The Economic Development District is this red one, RC is green.
Orange is R2. Okay. So can you show me where the exact property is again?
Okay.
Here, right here, right?
Yeah.
The different orange. Which orange is that?
That's the
That's
Economic Development.
Zone.
ED.
Yep,
Okay.
and then there's R1 directly behind that.
Oh, that's just printing color.
Yes.
Okay. And that is RC right there. This non-color is R1. Okay, gotcha.
So where it is white, that's not our.
This is not, yeah. Okay.
Good.
So just so I understand, I mean, so as I understand right now, as if there's not gonna be any commercial in there, that is technically not permitted at present.
That's correct.
So you guys are here having a conversation to say what sort of, right? And we've had multiple conversations, I know, in the past, or not necessarily we, I know in past years, have been conversations about how to allow, maybe some commercial on the same lot, as I think you were just saying.
Right.
And I know, I mean, so the challenge, of course, is that we do know when you only have residential, you have challenges because your property taxes are going to go way up. Everyone's property taxes go up or at best, residential is tax neutral, right? I guess I'm just wondering, any sort of ordinance change, at what point does the school board come in and say, no way, we can't do that, because you're talking about a bunch of kids and not as much tax, revenue.
Right, so I mean, the type of units you have here are
It's a
probably
one
not.
bedroom and two bedroom. They're not gonna be very
Typically, they're not,
conducive.
you know, you don't have a lot of children come out of that housing.
Right.
I know when the DePetris project went through, there was, I don't know if you're not legally allowed to do limitations to some degree, but you can require a certain
can.
percentage be senior. Is that right?
Yes,
How does
some
that
of them
work?
were 55 and up.
Is that something you have any interest in? I don't know if that's the population you're looking to serve.
No, not at this time, no. Just want to keep it more so open. And there's gonna be a lot of younger people who are gonna need housing. And we're also trying to make it a class A facility.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, just to be said, so it's on record, I mean, there's been a lot of conversation on the countywide about the fact that there's a real need for housing. So, I mean, we hear that. I have heard that from you too, Tom.
Right. What's the shortage number? Do you remember? It was something like 1,000, 2,000?
In the county,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so this question is just, where's the right place in our township? If right now, there's obviously a need for, apartments. And if this sort of density you can't have in an RC right now, I mean, that's the other question, like, should that be step one? To make that possible, an RC or R2. Obviously, this property is not in that land.
I think that this is because of the shape, topography of that parcel, and also where it's located in relation to the school. and very limited commercial uses nearby, it's probably one of the only spots that makes sense to concentrate the residential in one place.
I'd hate to change the zoning though, because it's precedent for other people. If we can do some kind of overlay district just for this one.
But you can't do that.
Well, you're not, that spot, that's the definition of spot
Well,
zone.
no,
You wouldn't
look,
want to do
there's
that.
two options. You have a text amendment, which I believe Tom took a stab at, or a variance. And a variance you're never going to get because it's not a hardship that's imposed by,
By the land. per
Right.
se. Right.
so I would like to take a look at the text amendment, and I think we could have John look at that and presumably Ron.
And I think this is a good time to really consider this, only because this is the only project that is conceivably going forward now. And could be, let's say, online in 2 years, whereas everything else we're talking about is still theoretical.
You already have reserved like sewer capacity and things like that, right?
Yeah,
Right, there's sewer capacity, we have water connection right here. We're making the traffic improvement here, which helps make a safe intersection. It doesn't make it overly easy for commercial use, so it's not an
Right.
easy on, easy out kind of drive through kind of.
Well, it's not like that's where you would want to put a target, like that wouldn't.
Well, I don't think the neighbors would want to target there either.
Correct. That's what I'm,
frankly.
correct.
So it does seem well suited in terms of location, access to highways and schools and all that for residential use.
And there's a lot that can be done as far as screening and different things like that to mitigate the light impact on any of the adjacent.
Well, that was part of the goal to have the buildings here. And
Yeah.
the parking out in the front. I think we
Right.
Got some relief for that to keep the lighting out by the, or like for the parking and where the active cars would be.
You had mentioned, a possible text amendment. Are you familiar with any townships in the area that have proceeded with
I
this?
actually
or we-
have a meeting, but it's not till next Thursday with someone who I hope to be able to get some references from.
Okay.
But unfortunately, in the timetable that you guys have, I wasn't able to meet with that person.
That's all good.
If you
but-
could follow up after that meeting, just so I could start.
Yeah,
researching.
and we can get that over to John, what you did right, that way we can look at that. All right, well, I know that I
I
got,
have an amended version of that because I do think if you decide that you do want to put it into the code, you probably want to preface it with supervisors of discretion. Because right now, we don't want it to be open for anybody, anywhere. You want it for the.
So unfortunately, you can't do that.
Right.
That's the whole point of the law. It's got to be, if it's gonna be allowed for this case. I mean, there's things you can do saying
I think
you
it's
must meet a minimum 15%,
Right.
handicap, stuff like that. Those can be required, or those are the ways that you,
also when it's directly adjacent to residential, low density residential.
I
things.
mean,
Like that.
Yeah. Right, like we have to get Nate out of here so we can go be in East Stroudsburg. You can let them know that we're all good.
Yeah, I think we've had the discussion, and it sounds like the township has some interest in trying to work this out. That's really what we're here for tonight. Just discuss the concept and that's from the township. And taking,
yeah, I mean, and I'll just voice, I mean, my one concern is that we don't want to see all of our ED zone turn to high density residential.
Right.
That's not, I think that certainly not the direction that I'd like
Right.
to take. I
Not
don't
the
think it's the
intent.
direction that the other supervisors want to take. So that's where you have, even if it seems like, oh, this is really the neighbors will appreciate this more than a commercial. There's a lot of reasons why this makes more sense in this particular spot. We just have to be smart. If it does make sense, but the language is correct, and yeah, just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
well, since you're having this meeting next week, it seems like you could give us some more insight from
I'm
that.
hoping so. I'm hoping it's the right person. I mean, basically, I was referred to this person. I've had a conversation with them. I don't know if they're the right person who has the skills, experience, and knowledge that I'm hoping to do. So I don't want to make a promise on their capabilities.
Well, it seems like we're all sort of pioneering here, all right? I mean, we all went to this conference, what was it, a month and a half ago, about housing, and the problems with housing. But when you come down to trying to do it, this is where we get to. No one's done it. And there's no precedent, and we're trying to figure out something that'll work.
As long as we don't do something that we're gonna regret later on, or changing zoning.
Correct.
There's also, we're all attending, or I don't know if we're all attending, but there's the PSATs, which is Pennsylvania
Yeah.
Supervisors Association of
Close.
something like that.
It's good.
At the
good.
beginning of next month, and there's gonna be lots of sessions addressing this topic, so it'll be interesting to see, and there might be another township that has the right tweaks that make these sorts of projects make sense for communities, so
Yeah.
we can look into that too.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Gonna take us back to reports. Ron, anything you want to talk about? Solicitor's report?
No, there's really not been, any activity other than the constant dealing with, the Mountain Manor matter, the
Yeah.
pleadings, the decisions, the orders. that have
Well,
come
maybe
down.
just since,
We
so,
did get an order,
Yeah.
that came down last week that basically denied Mountain Manor's motion to dissolve the preliminary injunction. So that is now off the table, if you will. Now we still have to proceed and get a permanent injunction, which the standards are a little different and it's a little harder. But the judge has scheduled, I believe, a May 2 case management conference for the lawyers to sit with him and go over the file and determine how the case will be moving forward at this point.
And that's not a hearing or anything, that's,
No, that's
So,
just a case management conference
just to-
that will occur probably in this courtroom. So
Yeah.
that if anyone would want to attend and listen, I guess they could,
mhm,
but generally it's not a hearing.
yeah, just gets us closer to an actual hearing date.
okay.
Is anybody around who can sit in there and listen?
I don't see why not. I can't speak for the judge, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a public matter and the public can be there.
Yeah.
Assuming he holds it in the courtroom. If he holds it in chambers, that's another story. The public would not be able to be there.
Yeah, I think
So
we'll know, be
Yeah.
able to tell their counsel.
Can we find that out by April 22nd?
What?
Will we know if it's gonna be in his chambers or out by our
I
next
can
meeting?
call, I can find out.
You can find out,
Yeah.
just so we can let people know. I hate for anybody to show up and then not be allowed to listen.
I can do that.
Perfect.
My concern with the motion to dissolve the permanent injunction was the service on the back nine, because they had not been served with the initial injunction complaint. Of course, the township didn't know that until September 16th,
Sure.
when we received the sheriff notice, which was 10 days after the hearing. But
Right.
fortunately, the judge ruled that because they appeared for the hearing, they entered a defense. The attorney said he was there for both defendants and filed papers and other documents with respect to both defendants. The court basically said that they were served. So we don't have to worry about that procedural issue.
Great.
And other than that, a bunch of emails that have come in. I do want to ask about the windfall special exception matter, in the sense that that's nothing we have to schedule, correct? That's something that the zoning board has to schedule.
Correct.
Special exception use. So I don't need to worry about preparing notices and timeframes and all of those things.
Jeff Durney has handled everything, and that is scheduled for the zoning hearing board meeting on May 6th, I believe it is.
Something like that. There's a notice, I saw downstairs on the door.
Correct.
And then I believe that we have another liquor transfer hearing coming up in May. And that has been, will be noticed in the paper.
Is that May or April?
That would be May 13th.
Okay.
It was scheduled initially, hopefully for May 22nd, which would be the next meeting. However, I'm not going to be available, as I indicated. I could be available. I don't know yet.
Right.
Starting a federal trial in Philadelphia on the day before.
Sure.
So if it gets settled or resolved or whatever, I could possibly be here, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, well, and I have concerns about just the application in general that I think I'd rather you be able to have time to be up on.
So other than that, that's what's been happening. Basically, Mountain Manor has been taking a lot of my time.
All right. John, engineers report.
I have just a couple items, Jacob. right after the last board meeting, the next night, we did have a meeting for the Bike Park Master Plan. It was attended by both townships and the public. We presented the results of our survey. If I remember correctly, I think we had 283 respondents. We had put together the from highest to lowest ranking, what they all wanted to see. We presented several concept plans, I believe 4, and we were given direction at the end of the meeting to tweak concept plan number 3. So that is what is happening on that front. The only other thing that we've been working on is Post Office Bridge, which we've got to do some repairs to. I was out last week. I did measure up the bridge so that I can put together a DEP emergency permit plan and get something out to bid just as soon as we can accomplish that. So
Great,
that's what we've been doing.
awesome. Thank you. Julia, anything you want to note?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Environmental Advisory Council. I know Brett usually gives
Here.
that, but Pat,
I'm here.
I think she's on Zoom.
Yes,
Do you
barely.
want to say anything?
Hi.
Hey, Pat, go ahead.
I just want to say we did meet and we continue to get our bearings is the way I kind of classify it, but we will be presenting or scheduling a presentation to supervisors on the open space. And we're finalizing a list of priorities for the committee itself. I can tell you that the number one is probably going to be the better public outreach. We've got to figure out how to get more public involvement in the committee itself and in interest in it. And we want to do some public education too. So we're certainly considering, the internet, but
Sure.
we're just in the beginning processes of figuring out what our actual strategy should be.
Great. I was glad that many members of the EAC were able to come with us on that tour of the BCRA facilities.
Yes, that was, I was glad too.
Great.
It was an interesting tour.
I'll say there's a lot of buildings involved in that process.
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat. We have nothing on I-80 and 611. So I'll just go to supervisors' comments. Michael, Robert, anything?
On I-80.
No, on anything.
I thought it might be helpful. Where is it? Real quick. Our Bonnie, our finance director, did watch the question and answer period last meeting and just highlighted some numbers just to put behind this is for you, Tara, related to the costs. So just information. Let me see if I can have it real quick. So if you take into consideration all the salary and all the things, the benefits and everything, the actual hourly rate was $54 an hour, just FYI. So not, I think you had estimated about 45, so it's not quite as significant. She just shared that with me just to.
That was previous zoning officer.
Previous zoning officer.
Yeah. Well, and then there was the savings.
And then, so yes, the new rate would be about $11 more an hour overall. But, and there, she did highlight also some significant savings because as we know, he's not been working 40 hours a week. So there actually has been, averaging, even if they average about 4K a month, it'll still be about, potentially about, if he continues on the same rate right now, it would be actually about a $60,000 savings on the year because he's working a couple days a week right now. So just throwing that out there. I don't have any other comments.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, we have no old business, so we'll proceed to new business. We have the consent agenda, which is a consideration to approve the fire alarm repair project, authorization to advertise the bid for the Marshall's Falls House demolition, authorize the advertisement of the bid for the post office bridge repair, execute our audit engagement letter with Riley and Company, grant a special event permit for the Shawnee Mountain Food Truck Festival, and a special event permit for the Shawnee Mountain Independence Day fireworks, and the consideration for the fee waiver for the Twin Falls zoning hearing board application. I think I know what you were about to say. You look like you were to say something.
No?
Oh, okay, all right. Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, I will second. Questions?
Yeah, do you mind making the two special event permits a separate
Separate motion.
motion?
That's what I,
So I can recuse myself as there's a minimal financial interest for myself, and we've got a new form, right, that I will sign and fill out.
Yes, it
Correct.
is.
oh, beautiful. Okay, Robert, will you amend your motion to move items 5 and 6?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and I will second that.
So let's discuss the other ones now.
Yep,
That's this building or the garage? It's the garage?
This is for the garage. We have a motherboard in the garage that is continuously pinging fire alarms that aren't safe. We need to get that fixed.
Nick
Okay.
Dennis has asked me more than once whether or not we were burning.
$3,000, is that right?
Yes.
3,000 something.
I think there's labor in there too, and that will replace the motherboard.
Yeah.
They've been here and have eliminated all the possibilities.
Don't we know it?
And Riley, we've used these guys last year
Yeah.
as well. That was the
We had a
first time. Last year,
multi-year-
the first year we used them?
We had a multi-year agreement.
The regulations around this actually changed before. We would have to put in the paper that we were signing on advertising for an auditor, and now we don't have to do that anymore, so we can simply accept this.
Okay. And the reason we're waiving the fee on Twin Falls is that's because it is that's the sewer, right?
No, that's the palm contracting application. This is one of the problem children that we have identified. And we are proposing to waive the fee because of prior actions of the prior zoning officer.
Oh, right.
It is de minimis as they normally put in the fee and then they would get reimbursed the difference. So it's essentially
It's already
transcripts.
been approved.
Correct.
basically.
yes.
Okay.
Any others? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and I will move that we grant the special event permits under 5 and 6. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Mr. Levenheim. Let the record reflect, Mr. Albert recused himself. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is the consideration to approve the purchase of the Armadillo traffic counter with Middle Smithfield Township. They offered to go half and half with us. I believe this has been discussed sort of ad nauseum, but we have a speeding issue in a number of different areas in the township. And this has helped reduce it in the Shawnee area and I think also in Birch Acres in the past. So I think, Robert, just to be clear, the total is $36.85, but we'd only be responsible for half of that, right? So $1,842.
Correct. Middle Smithfield has already approved their half.
Okay.
And Chris Claus has added his voice to saying this is something we need. In previous years, we've depended on the County Planning Commission to do this, but we've fallen away on it, let's say, in several ways.
Technologically speaking.
Yeah. One is their equipment is so old that it really doesn't function well anymore. It's using the old rubber hoses that went across the road. And as soon as the truck goes across it, they break. And the second is that there's been a difficult communication problem with them as far as what we want done. And 3 or 4 months later, we'll get back something that isn't what we wanted. For instance, I think our last foray with them was Craig's Meadow Road and Milford Road. Well, they gave us statistics on Craig's Meadow, but not on Milford Road. Doesn't make much sense. So we feel it's much better to have our own equipment, which is up to date and electronic, and be able to install it wherever we want, share it with Middle Smithfield, and have our own counts. It's basically one of those traffic signs without the sign. In other words, it doesn't say your speed is, it just records velocity.
Just gives us the
time,
data.
direction, all that sort of stuff.
Is the idea that we'll start to take studies, or it's just for when we're,
Well, first of all, when somebody complains that they're speeding, it allows us to get data. And also, let's say in the question of Craig's Meadow and Milford Road, where the residents are saying we need a light or we need a traffic circle or something, the data allows us to go to both the state police and also PennDOT and say, look, here's what we found. This is the actual data over a period of time. For the state police, let's say if there was a stop sign, you need warrants, which are really data on what's going on there. For PennDOT and for any other state department that's involved, you need, they don't call it warrants, but it's basically the same sort of data.
Right.
I guess I'm just curious if, I mean, it's interesting to know if there's something we really want to do about it, are we not going to be required to get a formal traffic study anyway? I'm just,
I may or may not, but at least this is a first step of saying, this is what we need, you should pay for it. Let's say in the case of Milford Road, it may be that PennDOT can do a study, but they're gonna go on what we found and say, okay, yeah, it looks like it's reasonable, let's do it. So,
I mean, my one thought on how this could be useful, I know we provide every year sort of recommendations on dangerous areas. So this actually provides some level of data to back up why a particular area is dangerous, at least when it comes to speeding. I mean, actually, I'd love to see this in use right at that intersection too, because people right now are slamming down 209. I just want to make, if we're going to do this though, I just hope we have a plan in place for how we're going to use it. And I know Middle Smithfield is driving the train on this as well, a fair bit. So I assume they have some sort of plan for what they're going to be doing with it. So maybe we should just have some sort of,
well,
let's have a coordinated response for how it gets used.
I think what you're talking about of looking at areas where there's speeding is one of them. Another one is stop signs, are they being run by people rather than stopping? Another is traffic speed on roads where people are complaining that they can't get out of an intersection. But there's a lot of things, once you have it, that you can use it for. And another factor is if we're actually complaining to the state police and saying, we need enforcement on this, showing the data as a way of saying, okay, yeah, put a car here, enforce the speed limit. And one thing I've found out in the years of working with state police and this sort of stuff is that they're very reluctant to put a speed, let's say, a patrol car anywhere. And if you can come up and say, look, okay, here's the Smithfield Elementary School, this is what happens. In the morning when people are speeding
Yeah.
through here, that's a reason for them to come out and take it out.
Is it just one unit that's costing $3,600 or is it multiple units?
No, it's just one.
It's a portable unit.
Outside.
No,
I thought
It's probably the same inside guts of that, but it doesn't tell you what speed you're going. It's just something we can put somewhere to get data.
those are just,
Be a car count.
Well,
does that too,
let's, like, very,
but it counts speed too.
very sophisticated car counter, all right? Speed, volume, direction, time of day, all of that kind of stuff. It's in it.
Yeah, I mean, who's gonna say when and.
So, I mean, the idea behind this, at least my understanding, is, it's not like, so the one in Shawnee it actually is to slow traffic, because
which it does.
theoretically, you see it and you go, oh gosh, I'm going too fast, and
10%?
slow down, or whoever it is. Reasonable people, good people do that.
What Julie said, that's 7 to 10 miles per hour less.
It has been shown. No, I agree, it does work, 100%. 100%. No, that's that one. This is not the same as this. That's what I was just saying.
That was my mistake. The insides are the same, but it doesn't have that sign on this.
It's a box and it fits, let's say on a
This is
post,
not
put it
des-
there for 2
hold on.
weeks.
One way communication.
Yeah, this device is not designed to slow traffic. It is not. It is a portable device used to determine whether or not there is something happening, often with counts. I guess I agree it would be nice to have. I just want to make sure that we need it, just because I'm concerned that we're gonna, anytime you're gonna have to do something, you're gonna need to have a full traffic study anyway. I understand, Robert, what you're saying. You can, share with police. Will giving them data actually increase the likelihood that they'll come out and set a trooper? I mean, if we legitimately believe that they will, then I think it's good use of funds.
They do appreciate the data.
This is the total one, right?
Correct.
So it's $1,500 to us, or
Yeah.
$1,800.
Yep.
The other opportunity that we have with this machine is pursuing low volume dirt and gravel road studies. Sorry, the other opportunity that we have
That's
with this machine is pursuing low volume dirt and gravel road grants. We got really, really lucky. The county was
two.
able to come in clutch over at Birch Acres when we were looking at doing stormwater upgrades. But those can only occur for low volume roads, and we got really lucky because the county was able to swoop in and do the counts that we needed.
Right.
over there.
So for that, to get the grant money, you needed the counts.
Yeah, and that can, depending on the county's availability, we were really worried we weren't gonna be able to apply for the cycle.
Correct.
Because of that, they managed to work everything out, so grateful for that. But that will take the burden off of them and allow us to look at our own roads and survey and go, hey, we can pursue for this, we can pursue for this, etc.
So that's the strongest argument I've heard so far, is that if we think a $1,800 investment will allow us to get grants for upgrading certain roads and making fixes to roads, that's, for me, yes. But just having it for the sake of, it'd be cool to know whether or not that's a bad road. I mean, usually we
Right.
know already.
Right.
And I have a question, and you collect all this data, then who goes over it and sees the results?
But what
In the case of what I had mentioned, that would be John Mott's Conservation District. He's the gentleman that will help go out to the road with us and we'll go over low volume stuff. For other opportunities, it really depends on how we use it. One other thing that I hadn't mentioned, if we pursue PennDOT to complete a study, if PennDOT completes a study and they say, hey, congratulations, you're getting a traffic circle here. The township has very little way to say, no, thank you, take it back, we don't want it.
Right.
Whereas if we do have an ability to do this ourselves, we can go, hey, this might warrant X, perhaps we don't want a traffic circle here, let's try and pursue something else.
Real quick, the amount that we got in the dirt and gravel low volume road grant because of Alex's work and the luck of getting the county was $20,358. So the return would be pretty good on future. And I know we have more applicants, but I think we pressed our luck with getting two. So in the future, be able to get more.
Is that a match grant? Yeah.
I forget what it is off the top of my head.
It is a match grant. Alex is administering this one, so I don't recall what the match is for that, but you are allowed to use township time and labor as a match for that. So I don't believe we're coming up with any.
That was road improvement?
Yeah, it'll be time of our guys going through, and our plan was to pave birch acres
Correct.
this year. But they'll be going through and fixing some of the swales on the side of the roads this year with that low volume dirt and gravel money. And then paving the roads hopefully next year, pending everything goes well.
Okay.
And they're also, apologies, replacing pipes under the roads that are degrading. That should be fixed before we pave the road, and
Yeah,
then they collapse.
Do we have the budget for this? Does it fall into the budget?
Chris has looked into it and he said that he's okay with it, so it will fall.
It
within
falls
our-
under the public
Yeah.
works.
Just to be clear, the grant requested was we got the full amount, the $20,358.88. The in-kind contribution, which is our staff time, which they were going to do anyway, is worth $10,000. So in total, it's $30,000.
Oh, so
It's not 1-to-1.
Okay.
I don't think even that was part. I just think that we were going to do the work, so we didn't have to put it out to bid.
Yeah,
We were just talking about
that was a grant
the
that we got
advantages.
because the county came in and used one of these and got that information.
Right, okay.
So the argument is that if we hadn't had the county being able to come in and last
Right.
minute do that, we wouldn't have. So we're just trying to figure out what that grant was worth to us.
Forgive me, but did we have a motion on the purchase? Or did we go straight into?
So I don't know, did you answer Joanne's question? How are you gonna work out who's using it when with Middle Smithfield?
I mean, we have a very cooperative relationship with Middle Smithfield. We don't need a written agreement on it, but I mean, it would be a coordination from. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's going to be used 52 weeks a year, but we have a good working relationship between both of our departments of public works. So that would be the
I do think,
transfer.
I think it'd be good to have, like I said earlier, at least an understanding of how Middle Smithfield is gonna use it, and then we can sort of lay out. It doesn't have to be set in stone. It will be
Correct.
this week, but
Right,
making sure that there's an ability for us to both use it 50/50 if we're both paying for it 50/50.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and they
it doesn't
were
exist yet, but
highly
it will.
amenable to it, yeah.
Should.
All right. Robert, did you make a motion on that?
Motion to approve
Okay, motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second?
for a total of, let's put it on 1842.50.
Okay,
I'll second.
second, Mr. Albert. Any last questions?
I mean, for the cost of that instrument, why not just buy your own? I mean, like salaries here have gone through the roof, and you give salary money away like crazy for $3,000, why not just get your own?
Because we don't, my understanding is, my understanding is we don't need it all the time, and having it half the
Correct.
time will be enough. In this case, if we had just had it one weekend or 1 week,
Yeah,
it would have enabled us to apply for this, well, which we did, but we got the county. So I don't think we'll need it all the time. So, and we do joint things with other townships all the time.
yeah, I think I would say if it were to be one of the ones with the display, like because the need for this is different than the one with the display, like if it was that, I would buy that ourselves because we have 2 of those. But I would do that, but in this instance, I don't think it's necessary in the same way. Correct.
And this is specifically a portable one. It like includes the carrying case and, whatever.
Yeah. I forget where it is.
On Fawn Road.
That's right. Tim,
So,
the opposite of what she was asking. Is this something that you could rent?
It
No,
doesn't,
Do we ever rent something like that? No,
generally not.
no.
There's, in
I mean,
fact,
just because you sound. like you're
in
not
fact,
using that
people
often.
could rent it from us. If another township needed it, well, okay, we'll give it to you for 2 weeks for $300 or something. We could rent it out too.
You'd be able to get the other
Well,
one.
no, because you're saying it probably won't be used that often, so it just. maybe you could just-
Nobody rents them. They were,
I wasn't sure.
and as I said, the only people that have them at this point are the county planning commission. But I think they have 1 or 2, whatever, but they're so old that they're not accurate and they just don't work anymore. It's like an old technology.
They use the pipes, the rubber things.
Yeah, rubber.
Yeah.
Ready for a vote here?
Yeah.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Just for housekeeping, we have 2 draft ordinances in front of us. One is self-storage facility regulations, the other is transient business regulations. They were both reviewed by the new zoning officer, who had positive feedback for both. I don't think he had any changes on the transient business, but I know that he might have had more substantive feedback on the what was that? Self-storage.
Yeah, so for the self-storage, I actually spoke with him before, so this was kind of drafted with his guidance. The reason these, proposed self-storage facility regulations are before you today is because the most recent self-storage facility that came through the township, I believe it was back in 2020, was a 3022 hearing on the
Correct.
LUC. When Matthew first started working, he brought it to our attention and said, hey, you really need to put regulations on the books. We already do have a number of these facilities in the township. Most of them, doing research, have come through an awkward combination of the 3022 hearing, zoning hearing board hearings, conditional uses, and 1 court case.
Right.
So this will make sure that we are not 3022 in the future, and we can decide where these go and how we want.
So right now, self-storage is not, they're in our definitions though. They're not?
There's outdoor storage that's defined, which is like for the boats, RVs,
Yeah.
but not the indoor self-storage.
They're not in there? I thought,
No, I don't think so. I think the one that Trepasso has, or has not built yet,
Mhm.
was approved because, what's the,
It went
The
through
ordinance.
3022
Yeah.
hearing.
in other words, it wasn't, we didn't have any zone where it existed as a definition. So. It's
Correct.
what do we call it? The same thing that went on with
3022.
water gap
Yeah.
wellness.
and this is basically saying not allowed in R1, condition,
Saw someone walk in.
They're taking our.
All right,
Oh.
that's fine. Go ahead, Michael.
not allowed in R1, conditional use in a R2, not allowed in RC, not allowed in RE, conditional use in an ED, and principal permitted in M1.
That mostly makes sense. I would say
Sorry?
M1
Permitted by right is in an M1, which
the
makes sense.
industrial.
Industrial. And then conditional in ED and R2.
I do want to discuss the R2 though, because I think again, more or less like we talked about with the Westfield project. The site that they have the approval for and under the 3022 and conditional use. I don't in the R2, I don't know that I want to have that again going forward. I think the intention was to keep that in ED and M1.
That is one of the outstanding questions I had.
Yeah.
Currently, all of the currently built self-storage facilities are located in our ED zone.
Yeah.
I put them proposed as conditional use in R2 only because of the Plaza one,
Yeah.
but I wanted your thoughts on that.
The one across from Mart's, is that not? That's half in Delaware Water Gap and half in ours?
Right.
Is that an outdoor storage? Is that why?
The moving self-storage is technically located in Delaware Water Gap.
The one on the same
Right.
side as the Mart's?
Wasn't that the
Must,
No, no.
No, yeah.
But the one,
That one was the existing nonconformity that was expanded. Right? From what I remember.
Moved in was an existing
Yeah.
non-conformity
Yes.
that got expanded.
Apologies, thank you, Don.
gotcha.
All right. Well, speaking, because I was there when we did the approval on trespass, so I would like to, make it not permitted in the R2. I think their conditional use approval at that point is sufficient, if I'm not mistaken, Ron, if they do decide to build that.
For what, in the R2?
Yeah. If we make it not permitted in the R2 now, their existing conditional use is good for.
Yeah, they would be.
Yeah.
They would be great.
Yeah, my other question is,
There's
if,
gonna be a question I also had, whether you wanted it in the residential
Yeah,
area.
I don't.
Because I could see that causing
No.
some legal issues.
Yeah.
but-
I think that's, I agree. My question is, I mean, if you have an apartment complex and you want to have storage next door, can you do that? Is that considered an accessory use and therefore not the same?
Correct.
Apartment buildings of storage, you're saying is accessory?
It's like, it's a garage that, let's say an apartment
Yeah,
complex wants to
That's
offer in a
that's
garage.
accessory incidental to the
I
use.
would say that would be accessory fashion, but if you're using it as a principal use kind of thing, then no.
Just want to make sure that's the way it's defined, self-storage facility, a building or group of buildings that are divided into individual accessible units in which each unit is available for rent or lease to the public. For self-storage of tangible personal property, I guess in this case, it wouldn't be available to the public, it would only be available to the apartmentees, and
You
therefore
can
that's not the
add to
same.
That definition, a accessory use to a private lot, is not. Some language of that.
All I'm saying is I agree it shouldn't be in R2. I just want to make sure we're clear that if there's an apartment complex with a garage that has storage, that doesn't get screwed up here. And if you think it's as written, it's fine.
Well, I think what you're talking about would be wholly separate from that definition.
Individual accessible units.
So I'm talking about, you're not discussing a garage where individuals park their cars.
No, I'm talking about like an accessory building where you might have, I mean, as I read this, let's say you had lockers or something like that. I mean, some of the high-end apartments do that. They have areas where you have your own locker space and your own, locked key storage areas. If it happened to be in a separate building, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just want to,
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure that it is that what's written
I
here.
agree with you. I just don't think that that's what that is.
Good point.
I can ask Matt for his opinion on that.
I think the goal from here is.
I'm happy, yeah.
Yes, I think the goal from here is to let the planning commission review it. Same with the next ordinance also, but this would,
All right, if maybe we can have Matt take a look at that little nuance there. Especially since are we largely in agreement that it should be not permitted in R2? Rob, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So by making it not permitted, I want to make sure that we're not hurting anyone that might have an apartment building in an R2 and have an accessory building that is used for storage, that they could still do that.
That would be okay, right? Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
I think it might be safe because it wouldn't necessarily be rent or lease by public, it'd be rent or lease by tenants, and that's gonna be different.
Correct.
And in fact, keeping it as is makes sense, because you wouldn't want someone to have an accessory building and then rent it out to the public if the apartment people
Correct.
didn't need it, because that would be
it would
self-storage.
attract traffic and.
So in that sense, I think it's probably fine.
Yes. But
I've talked
Can't hurt to
myself,
have
I've
him-
talked myself into it.
Well, can't hurt to have him look at it regardless. I'll entertain a motion that we request the planning commission review that draft ordinance then. I hear that.
With conditional use removed and non-permitted for R2.
Correct.
Correct.
This part of, Mr. Chair, the zoning ordinance, or just a standalone?
This one's in the zoning ordinance.
And so then you'll need to have it reviewed by the Monroe County
Mhm.
Planning.
Yep.
Is your motion include that? Or do you want to have our?
I didn't make a motion yet.
Oh,
I was entertaining.
well,
one.
entertaining. I will make a motion that this be reviewed by both planning commission and the Monroe County, the Smithfield Planning Commission and the Monroe County Planning Commission.
All right, motion by Mr. Albert. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Levenheim, questions? Joanne?
Robert made a comment about, pending one coming up. He said that they.
Yeah, that was the Trapasso one that we talked about, that I brought up. They got conditional use approval in 2020. I believe it was
Next to
2020.
Big Lots.
Yeah, it was in the back. They had access through the back of property, I think in East Stroudsburg or Stroud Township, Skyline Drive back there. So it's kind of in that rockier area, isolated from the residential. So that's why we felt
Behind-
it made sense at that time. And it still makes sense, although we don't know if they're actually going to build it. But us changing this ordinance won't end their ability to do that there. They were the only one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, transient business regulations. Now this one has a little more meat to it.
Yeah, so, the Board of Supervisors have discussed this last, back on December 17th. And this was tabled, just for want of moving other ordinances forward.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I've had Matt re-review this, he had one de minimis change with a name somewhere. But this is before you now, for your review. The reason that this is coming up is we've been notified that we have someone who's interested in having a food truck on their property. And that current permit will expire in July. So Matt would like to make sure that any updates that the board would like to make to transient business uses are in place ahead of that schedule.
So everything on the right is the new ordinance.
Yes, this is in the comparison format, and you'll see deletions and placeholders, anything that changes from one spot to another, you'll also see bold on the left side where the current version exists.
Right.
Seems much clearer and simpler than the old one.
Yes, part of the reason that you proposed this update in the beginning was that we didn't think it was fair to require, people who are interested in transient businesses to produce highway occupancy permits that PennDOT has no database for.
And also, didn't we change the operating hours? I think we said, or maybe Michael said, it should be whatever hours the owner of the property.
There is,
Okay.
a requirement now, it's on page 3.
I'm so blind. I can't.
Very
I need
top,
glasses.
Number E.
Officially happening.
That,
Always open the
written
PDF and
correspondence
Zoom
with
too.
Property owner granting the transient business permission to use their property and any restrictions on hours of operation.
I think that's right.
And does it still right now say C1?
No, that's the old one.
I know, but right now,
Yes.
is that what it says?
Where are you?
I'm looking at section 3. The current version says.
Yes.
Still says C1.
Yeah,
That's
and
fine.
that's why on the right side of that, it's shifting to M1 Resort and EB.
And this sort of
Left side
eliminates
is
the
in the
need
old
for,
stuff, right side is in the stuff.
Correct.
eliminates the need for the special event permit every time.
And they can't build a new. That was already there. So instead of having a highway occupancy permit, they must use an existing garage. Okay.
Correct. That's- And although this is in chapter 13, there is like one tiny part of chapter 27 that changes, so the planning commission has to review this also.
Correct.
Yeah.
Section 5 on the last page, makes a change to the schedule of district regulations. And that's in chapter 27.
Right.
Okay. Do you remember why we tabled this?
You had requested that I focus on other ordinances.
I forget which one of the 15.
But had this already been presented as is?
It was presented.
It's pretty close.
There, Matt made a single word change. I don't remember what it was. The Scouts. Because the Boy Scouts have renamed themselves the Scouts. and the current proposed new version still said Boy Scouts. And he commented that they're not calling them Scouts.
Yeah, otherwise this is mostly consistent. The only difference that I remember was from the first time it was in front of us was we added like the limitation on the size of the transient business, which was item G. Yeah,
24 square foot.
right.
But that was already that way. It's already that way right now. Oh, that's the sign. I'm sorry.
Correct.
I mean, it's small, but I wouldn't necessarily say 12 foot by 12 foot, maybe say 144 square feet, just because tents are getting interesting. And if you had a food truck that was 13 feet by 8 feet or
Right.
whatever,
Is that the truck or is that like a tent?
this says temporary structure or tent shall not exceed 12 foot by 12 foot footprint. Well,
It says
What-
or a single vehicle or trailer,
Right.
but I still think it's a valid point though, what you said.
Someone had a yurt that they wanted to put something.
Right,
on.
well-
Cigar.
right, so it still allows any single vehicle, but I mean, whatever.
No, I think
It's
that makes
small.
sense.
Are we gonna cite somebody if their tent is 13 feet?
No, probably not, but I'm just
No.
saying, just to make it simple.
It might, yeah. Well, with that, I entertain a motion to ask the planning commissions to review that with that revision.
Second.
Consider it made and seconded.
Oh, motion. I do have another question before. I
Sure.
mean, the other big thing, and I remember this now,
Mhm.
so this is all about moving from 30-day period to a 1 year period.
Right. Because basically you could only do it for 6 months, but never consecutively. Under the current code.
I suspect the planning commission is gonna have a bunch of comments anyway, so I'm happy to have it sent to them.
Sure. All right, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think the planning commission will approve it only if it looks like something that's a food truck in Freeport, Maine.
Wow, not so bad.
I'm sure they're pretty similar. Okay. Public comment. All right, Joanne, take you first.
Property there, house that has a something getting done about that house coming down, right by the bridge, the new bridge there,
Mhm.
you know where I mean? You know where Pine Hill Road?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I remember something vaguely.
Yes, our
Yeah.
BCA's are still working. Yeah.
Trying to get rid of that eyesore, and then there's a couple on Mosher's now, I haven't sent anything in, but, I mean, should I do that?
Please do, yes.
Yeah.
If you
I
find
mean, some
something.
of them are really bad.
Yeah.
And then people are asking me, oh, do you know who moved them, do we sell it?
Yeah, by all means, send them into us.
Okay,
Use
yeah, I was
those
just
on-
wondering, you have nothing been done with that other one, so I was just wondering, what's the steps that get taken?
It's a slow process with the,
Like 30 days, or do they have to
Yeah.
come back to the game plan of what they're doing?
right, it's a slow process with the building codes, but yes, we get compliance, but if not, we can proceed with getting it torn down as a dangerous structure, et cetera. There's a couple options there. Yeah. All right, Marguerite.
When we had the Light Park meeting, we were on Zoom.
Yep.
Can you tell me why, if you go on YouTube, it's not there anymore?
I mean, I'll look right now, but,
I can, that was the one that we needed to pull down.
oh,
Is there
Where
a
it,
reason?
yes, we have to redact some stuff and it'll be up. in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Have to redact some stuff, it's a meeting.
Hold on, with regard to identify PII, personally identifiable information with regard to sensitive individuals, that by law, we can't disclose their addresses and their property PIN numbers, things like that. So we had the plans that were presented.
Yeah. you'll
They were
notice
without
the concept
information
plans that
on the
were,
website.
Like, we also had to change the PowerPoint as well. This isn't obviously something I can talk about in public, because doing so would violate the same PPI. But if you give me 2 moments of your time after the meeting, I'll make it clear.
Tara?
Okay, so I just want to circle back to what we spoke about earlier. So basically at more than one meeting, the residents questioned why we have a zoning officer that's only here 1 day a week. And they were quickly corrected, basically that although Matthew's only here 1 day a week, they're working on, things related to Smithfield Township, even when they're not in the building.
Yes.
Okay, so Michael's 60K in savings that he said Bonnie gave him is based on the fact that Matthew's only working here 1 day a week.
I said 1 or 2 days. Oh, okay, well, I misspoke, because each month has been a completely different bill,
Correct.
so it's been more than 1 day, for sure. I don't know the exact numbers. What I'm trying to say is it's not working 5 days.
Okay, so either the fact that he's working only 1 day a week, or I'm sorry, more than 1 day a week is not accurate. Or
He's
the savings is inaccurate is what I'm saying, because you're saying the savings is based off the fact that he's here 1 day.
No, I said the savings are, but she gave me an average of what he's billed over the last 2 months, and it's the savings.
Correct.
Times of the fact that
He's not working just 1 day, and I just said that again. He's working more than one, whether that means 1 and 2 hours 1 week, and then 3 days another week. I don't know the exact number. I'm not administering his contract.
Be out in the field.
He has been out in the
Yeah,
field.
several times.
Thursdays are his office hours, so he has to be here on Thursdays.
Right.
So by that, I would assume guaranteed he's working at least more than 1 day because he's been out in the field.
For certain.
End up paying.
Yeah, there's a chance. Right, so far to date, in this year, from my message from Bonnie, there's been savings.
Right. Based on 2 months. We'll see though. But he's done quite a bit in those 2 months to clean up some things, so we're happy with that.
Actually, that was what I forgot with my township manager's report, if I
Go
may
ahead.
jump way back to that.
Sure.
We got our first tranche of signs down.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody came to pick them up. Nobody said anything about us taking them down. But I hope you guys all noticed that the snipe signs that were on utility poles, we removed about 50 of them in our first tranche, and they're gone and in the trash can now because nobody came to pick them up.
I also noticed some signs that were in PennDOT roadways have been removed as well.
Yes, I spoke with Brian and he specifically targeted the problem that we had off of exit 310 and took care of it.
Yep. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
All right, motion by myself, second, Mr. Levenheim, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We adjourned at 7:25.
Aye.
No.